Hey everybody, welcome to Rust Belt Startup. I'm your host, Ryan Miller. And if you're new here, Rust Belt Startup is a occasional podcast that is full of long-form conversations with artists, entrepreneurs, educators, people that are living unconventional lives in unconventional locations. So if you're watching this on the YouTube, or I guess now Spotify's got video, so if you're checking it out on Spotify, nice to see you. And if you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to your podcasts, thank you so much for lending me your ears for a little bit. It's been a while. I don't think I've put out an episode since 2024, but I'm hoping to change that. Life has been happening, and I've had some conversations in the can here. I just haven't had a chance to edit them. But the sun is out-ish here. It's still kind of cold in upstate New York, and I've just had an incredible amount of stuff going on with the stuff that pays the bills, which is not this podcast. But I'm hoping to get some of these conversations back out into the universe because they are absolutely worth listening to. So let's talk about today's pod. I'm having a conversation, or I had a conversation this past March with Jamie Thompson, also known as Buddha, and Ryan McEwen. They are the founders and owners of Mohawk Valley Trailers and Food Trucks. And you're like, before you say, I'm not interested in this podcast, I got to tell you, we spend very little time talking about bending metal and food trucks. The reason I wanted to have both of these folks on, and I've been wanting to do this for quite some time, is they're just some of the most. You ever meet people, and it's like no matter what they're doing, you just want them to succeed? That's how I feel about these guys. They have quite the story of getting this company off the ground. They've been working at it for 14 years, bending metal, building food trucks in upstate New York, in an area where we don't have a year-round food truck climate here, but they've been doing it. And what I find so remarkable about the two of them is not only the origin story, how they got into this business out of a place of, frankly, desperation, and how they had to kind of put this company together with duct tape and bubble gum, and how they've managed to keep it going. I think that is, there's a lot of great takeaways here in learning from them and the bruises and scars that they've accumulated along the way. But the more important thing is the human side of this business. And I think that's one of the things I try to do with some of these pods is really focus on the people. And the two of them, I have no other way to describe it other than they just have a very healthy relationship. When you're in a room with your co-founder and you're working with your hands and you're going through the same struggles that they are, you got to have a good relationship to make this go. And it is clear from the moment that you'll meet these two that they care deeply about one another and just want each other to succeed. We really get into those dynamics in this conversation. It's really interesting because they talk a lot about race and the role that race plays in business. And as a company that is founded by a black dude and a white guy, those dynamics are very interesting in the way that they have experienced working with customers and the business community and being in manufacturing. They've got a lot to say about that. And it's just a great conversation. I love spending time with these guys. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with Mohawk Valley Trailers and Food Trucks. So if you want to get in the food truck business or learn more about them, they got a YouTube channel that we just launched, which I will link up in the show notes. And you can go to their website at mvwtrailers.com. If you want to get a food truck, now's the time to do it. But thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll see you later. So let's just, whoa, that's not a great place to start. Okay. Everything's on wheels here, and everything's
not fastened to the ground.
Not fastened to the ground. All right. So let's start at the beginning here. How'd you end up in this building? How'd you end up doing welding?
So I started welding because I had some friends that took a welding course, and I had gotten myself in a bunch of trouble when I was younger. And when I came back home, I had some buddies that had went through the welding program at MV, and it seemed really cool. They talked really good about it, and it seemed like a really fun thing, to be able to do. And if you could make it an occupation, then that's even better, right? So did the welding course, worked at a couple large businesses, here in Utica. Worked for Susquehanna Railroad for about 5 years, and a couple other machine shops, and really enjoyed that type of work. That actually led me to the final place that I worked, which was a sheet metal company that I met Buddha at, and we hit it off, and had a really good friendship, and unfortunately we got laid off at the same time.
It's like same day. It's like
same day, same moment. like both in the office at the same time. Like, hey guys, gotta let you go. And at that time, we were both in a pretty desperate time in our lives because we had families, and we had children and houses and things that we were trying to take care of. And it was a really bad situation. And I think because it was so bad and we were so desperate, we were willing to do whatever to get to another level.
When was this? What year was this?
This was 2010.
11?
Okay.
Yeah, 10, I think. 10, 11, like the end of 10. And, in the middle of the recession and all that. And it was pretty bad. But those negative things that were happening in the country actually benefited us a little bit. It didn't seem like it at the time. It seemed like it was just like torture for us at the time trying to get everything going. But, plywood was $8, and, sheetrock was like $2, and, all the stuff that we had to go buy, for the business.
We bought it at wholesale.
Yeah. We were going to Lowe's, and we were like all these tables and everything that are in the shop. We were going and buying all the wood that they throw out that's like all bent and twisted, and we were turning them into tables and work, areas that we could,
Yeah, but wait a minute. You skipped a whole bunch because you're like, okay, you went from we got laid off to we got the shop and we got this business. And there's all this stuff that happened in between.
Yeah, there's a lot
that you guys have told me. And I want to hear that story. I mean, did you guys just look at each other, you come out of the office and be like, all right, what are we going to do now? Or was it instantly like, we're opening a shop?
No.
Like, what happened?
We talked to each other I think weeks later, right?
Okay.
It was like, so this is the real beginning, right? I would drive past this place every day because I lived 3 blocks up the street at the time. So every day I drove past this building and it said for lease, or for rent. And I think I had called Buddha, and I was like, hey, what do you think about like trying to do what we were doing at this last business, fabricating those products, because that's what we did, right?
Bending metal.
They brokered the job, and we would just do the work, right? So we bent everything up, welded everything up, went to the business, installed everything, and really the only thing we weren't doing was brokering the deal. So I saw the place was for rent. I called him, and really it was kind of, listen, it was crazy. Like I had a couple credit cards, and we maxed them out. He ended up saying, yeah, I would be interested in doing that with you.
How'd you do? Would you do a lease on a credit card?
No. So I'm getting
that's all right. That's good
up here, but so.
Like, here's the reason I'm asking, because what I kind of do for a living, and a big part of when people are trying to start businesses are like, how am I going to fund this thing? And there's people that get over their skis.
That wasn't our concern. We just didn't want to get laid off again from another company. So we kind of just put our faith in each other just to kind of give 100%. It a shot and just see what we can create with our own talent. I think that was like pretty much the deciding factor.
Just that we have to.
Yeah, well, if you can, because listen, it's not like there was a lot of opportunities here at the time. It was an opportunity for us to get the space we got for so we were paying like $500 a month for like this for 5,000 square feet, and that ended up turning into the whole building years later. But in the beginning, the economy, because everything was so cheap, it made it affordable. But because everything was was, because we were in that economic state, there wasn't a ton of businesses doing a ton of work that we needed to do to survive, right? So it was a lot of like just doing these jobs just to get by.
What, like restaurant hoods or just like anything? If someone needed metal,
any job that kind of came in, and plus the owner of the building kind of was really good to us and let us kind of rehab the building before we were even like really working and getting jobs. So we didn't have to pay that much in rent, which helped us scale our business.
And there was a lot of months that we couldn't pay the rent. And they didn't let it slide, but they were like, don't worry, just get your stuff together. And that's really the biggest thing I think in the beginning for everybody. It's like when you go to start a business, you need all the help and all the resources at that moment, right? But nobody wants to help you because you're a gamble. Because like, how do we know you're going to complete the job? Or how do we know this is going to work out good for us? And then people don't invest in you and they don't believe in you. And that's why probably such a small percentage of like small businesses succeed is because, it's just so extremely hard. So hard. And if both of us, look, I'll be honest with you, if both of us weren't so desperate for like a better life and to be doing something, better than we were, like let's say that I, for instance, had other opportunities, I probably would have went on my way, or if he had better opportunities. But because we both knew that we both needed each other and that, we couldn't do it without one another, I think that's what really got us to where we are. That really helped us.
Let me ask you this. How do you know you couldn't do it without one another? Because like, I'm someone that like, I don't know if I work well with others. I don't know, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I tend to think that I don't, but there's a part of this where it's like, I see a lot of people that start up business with their partner or a friend or whatever. And inevitably what happens is they don't hash out at the beginning who's doing what and who's pulling what kind of weight. And then inevitably there's this like imbalance and things fall apart. And so a lot of people are just like, I'm not going to expose myself to that. So is it just, you're just, again, desperation? Or how'd you determine that, like, I guess, how'd you determine that you need each other? Was it just financial, or was this like you get along, or how do you figure that out?
I think the getting along part was the best. It was just like we both were from Utica, but we never met each other until we started working with each other.
It's funny, we had all the same friends too. Like we knew all the same people,
but didn't know each other.
But never met each other before.
I think just the I don't know, the vibration, the feeling, it was just like a natural coolness, right? It always he felt like a friend when we first met. For me. So I didn't think it was no competition or just trying to one up each other. I think that's always the conflict in a business relationship, or you're always trying to be better than the next person, and that was what kills the deal. I think that's not my character. I'm usually
you ride the wave.
I ride the wave. I have my points of view. I have all those things, but I'm kind of a ride the wave guy, and eventually, we kind of come to that agreement that we can work together and not, I guess, have any disagreements that push us apart.
And I think that you got to want to see other people do better than you. You got to be able to see other people do better than you, right? Because a lot of people, I think that's their problem in this world, is they want the world to be better, but God forbid people start doing better than them. They feel that they're going to be stuck behind, right? But like the way I always looked at life was, let me help you up. Right. And then you could pull me up, you know what I'm saying? And then we could just keep doing that, so it's, we just keep leveraging ourselves, and, one person gets up a little bit, the next person pulls the person up, and I think that if that's your attitude, you will be successful, because, you'll be helping other people really do well. And I just think that was what really helped me out. That's why what helped to keep us together, I think, was I could probably speak for Buddha too, we wanted to see each other do well because we both were in the same spot when we started, right? Both struggling, both not really knowing, knowing where life was going to take us, and just, that's a good mentality to have, I think, with anybody that you're working with. But it just depends on the people you're working with, right? Because if you're working with somebody that's got a lot of money or got resources and doesn't need you, right? Like, you kind of got to need each other a little bit.
Well, you got to have some commonality. I think that helps.
So you decided doing this. You get, and sorry for the detour but now we're back in the building. You got the building.
Yes.
You're maxing your credit cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a certain point where you're like, this thing's got to go, or you're in this building. How are people finding you? Like, how are you eking out a living?
Mostly word of mouth.
Yeah. And it's still that way. And look, I think the biggest thing to remember is that it's still a struggle. We've been in business for 14 years. It's still a struggle because the world changes, like even if you're doing everything right, other things change, technology changes, people's, things that they're buying changes, whether, their economic situation changes, so they can't afford certain things, right? So you constantly have to be, able to shift gears and, shift directions, and, honestly, that's why we went into doing the food trucks, because like we just saw a window. We were doing random things. We'd be on the side of the road welding bridge
structures,
columns and stuff like that. Really, seriously, like we, working for some of the municipalities in Utica. We were all over the place. Water treatment plant, just
if you got money, we'll weld it, right?
You got a job for us to do. We get it done.
And and people like those bigger companies love people like us because they know that they're going to get the job done, and it's going to be a lot less expensive than a big, huge company that's coming in to do it.
Yeah.
We've probably, some of the people we worked for, we probably saved them millions of dollars, for some of the jobs that we did. And, it's a good feeling, but at the same time, it's very difficult because you need people to believe in you, when you don't have the big truck with the graphics all over it, or you don't have the big building with the signs and everything all up in the front. Like, we didn't have any of that stuff, we
were longevity,
or the longevity in business.
Being in business.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize is that, like, you go and you spend $30,000 having those people do the job, and you find somebody else that, like people like us, we might have been half the cost, to get the same job done.
There's a middle ground. I always tell people, it's like, people want to know that that you're professional enough and that they can trust you. And it's like, sometimes, the sweatshirt, the logo sends that signal right or wrong,
Sure it does.
But, without it, you just got to it's like, I feel like you got to just get the reps in. You just got to get enough jobs in where people then.
And the trust, build
the trust.
And the way that I guess the difficult part about it is that people are very judgmental on how things look.
Sure.
And, even just how people look, even regardless of what you have on, sometimes, you don't look the part to do the job, and then you don't get the job, and, we went through that a lot, I think with a lot of the situations that we were in, even, aside from jobs, banking and, just financially, it's hard looking like we do sometimes, and getting people to really believe that you're going to do the right thing.
That you're capable.
That you're skilled enough to do the job.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
And that's caused a lot of difficulty. The black and white thing has been a difficult road to navigate.
Let's talk about that. This I just think this is interesting because you guys come from different backgrounds, same town.
Same town.
And I joke with you guys when we get to hang, you're like a married couple, because you guys.
But we don't fight. We're a married couple. We don't fight.
No, but it's funny, and I don't mean that like pejoratively. It's just like it is immediately clear that you guys care very deeply about each other and want each other. Like, it's immediately clear, and it's like, how do you do the same thing with the same person for 14 years or whatever it is, right? Like that's the only analogy that I can come up with, is that, and you're saying all the same things. It's like, we want each other to succeed. Like we're looking out for each other. Like, I'm like, man, you guys are like an example of a good married couple. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the goal with any relationship, I think. Married, friendship, business relationship. You want the next person to kind of, do better than you or as good.
It's just it's work.
It just understand you.
But it's natural for us. I think so. It's easier to want him to do better and than me. And I feel the same thing from him. So it's just a cool, relationship, friendship, business relationship. But I just wanted to say one thing. So after we started doing these random jobs, one of Ryan's family members asked us to build him a trailer, and that's how we started
a food truck.
A food truck,
yeah.
Right?
And so I'm assuming you built it from scratch. You're like, we're gonna get a trailer.
We did, and that was I think the hardest trailer.
It was the heaviest
and
most expensive. Listen, crazy. We actually snuck into this room, right? So we had our shop was on the other side of the wall at the time, but these people had went out of business. There was a concrete company here, and they went out of business, and the space was available, so we busted that door open, and my cousin Craig was like, "Yo, you think you could build me a food trailer? Because I really want to get this barbecue business off the ground." And we were like, "Yeah, I guess if you're paying, let's do it." Listen, we probably didn't make a penny. It probably cost us money, but we got it done.
I don't understand how the breaking down the door fits into this story, because you needed more space.
We needed more space.
Yeah, we couldn't build it in there. We needed this room to actually fabricate it. And I remember, I think when the landlord came down one day, I think we threw a tarp over the top of it or something, and we had it hidden in the corner. But yeah, it was funny. But it worked out good for him. He ended up opening up a barbecue business. He ran it for quite a few years, and then he was off to the next thing. But it was successful for him. They had a good run with it, and that was the first job.
That's funny.
And that led to a lot of other jobs. We actually had a lot of people that were calling us. And wanted to do something similar because of the food truck scene growing, right? And people doing, going to these events, having the rodeos and stuff once a week in their towns, and just gave people an opportunity to bring their products there, to places that normally people wouldn't be able to go and see them, right? So they were able to get out to some of these venues that had a lot of people, and it was really lucrative for them,
I want to talk a little bit about, I want to go back a little bit to the I'll call it the shop evolution. I know we're kind of bouncing around here, but there's this kind of like growth stage of, from you guys were you starting on that side of the shop?
Yes.
You started on this side of the shop, and then you broke down the door, and now you're in this side of the shop, and you own this now.
Correct.
Right? And so I want to, if you could give me kind of the how did you make those decisions around growth? Because like that is, with each stage of growth, there's risk, there's financial commitment, and then you're kind of like, you're more ingrained in this, right? Like, oh, now we're in it.
Yeah.
So I want, like, take me through that.
Well,
or did that correspond with the transition to food trucks, I guess?
I think it's still there.
Yeah.
But we were able to obviously grow, maintain the ownership of the building. So there is some growth. It's just,
in the beginning of our business, because of some of the things that we had went through, we were kind of scared to just put ourselves out there, right? We, unfortunately, early on in our business, we got we had interactions with other people in business and other people that were very negative people that kind of scarred us a little bit, and people don't realize, right? You got to be careful who you do business with. And I think that's one lesson that I would, think that I would like to put out there.
I think we keep repeating, we keep learning.
You got to be careful who you do business with, because you can get linked up with people that can really hurt you, really, really hurt you. And it's just, you got to vibe with people.
But it's a double-edged sword, because then when you're starting, it's like you don't have the luxury of choice.
That's what happened. That's what happened to us. We got linked up with some people. We did a lot of work with them. But in the end, they try to take you out. That was really difficult for us, and it kind of closed us down a little bit. It made us not want to put ourselves out there, because look, it's hard to advertise yourself if you're not really doing great. I always felt like that was always my thing. I always wanted to be I wanted to be good before it was, we put ourselves out there. But
you got to be bad before you can be good, man.
You got to fake it till you make it. I guess.
That's it. And, well, it's funny, because I remember when we had first met, what a pain it was to try to get a hold of you guys. And I remember I was working on that finance project, which didn't really succeed, right? And I remember, I think you were like, come down, we'll meet you, come down to the shop. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, great, that sounds awesome. And then I was like, hey, can my partner come down? And you're like, no. Right. And they were like, we know who you are. We don't know this guy. He's not coming down. And I was like, okay, that's how it's going to be. But I get it now, right? Mm. Context is important.
Yes.
Well, because
relationship is important,
and because we were always always scrambling. We're always scrambling. Listen, it's like we gained all these things, right? You're renting a space, and then renting the space turns into renting 2 spaces, then it turns into renting 3 spaces, and then that turns into a mortgage, right? And then I don't know, you got stuff going on at home. So you once you create this world, right, you have to maintain it, and when you have all of these things that you have to maintain, it's very stressful, and you're like, every minute of that 40-hour or 50 or 60-hour work week is important. Right. Like, you can't just,
No, I joke, but it's like, you guys are here with me. You're not bending metal, right? Like, you're getting paid to bend metal.
Yes.
And it's an opportunity cost, Hey there, I don't mean to interrupt this conversation. I've never done this before on my own podcast, but I just want to take a second before we start the second half to give you a breather, but also to ask you to consider subscribing to my email newsletter, which you can do at rustbeltstartup.com. It's only sent out very infrequently, maybe once a month, with the latest podcast updates, as well as any really interesting articles, tools, or tactics that I found along the way that might help you in your business or in your role in trying to build up a business community or an entrepreneurial community in a small city or rural area. So don't forget to subscribe, share, all that stuff that people say in the YouTube videos. And now I'm going to bring you back to the second half of our conversation. Can I go back to, we started talking about kind of the different experiences you guys have as a team of guys that, black and white, and your experience with the business community, customers. I don't know if that's something you want to talk about, but, we've kind of talked about that over the months, and I just think you guys have just interesting experience, and none of it's good. We're not going hey, this is a great experience, but I think it's real.
I think it is a great experience because if we're able to,
you're going to say the same thing.
Well, if we're able to show that it doesn't matter which color you are, that obviously I am black and he is. What are you? We are. Everybody has to understand that. But you can still get along. You can still, be successful together. You don't have to look at superiority as you have to be white to be that. It's hard. We talk that. So this is very, very. I guess
it's like
deep
taboo,
conversation.
But what I was going to say is that all the experiences that we've had made us understand things better.
So what are some of those experiences?
Oh, like him paying double at the store, going to buy shit, and I could have just went there, right, and bought something and left, and then he went back to get the same thing because we figured out, oh shit, we needed 2 of those.
But wait a minute, this is what we were just talking about earlier. You're not in Morocco negotiating. How is that even possible?
I don't know, but it happens, right? And because it happens. it gives us something to talk about, right? And it allows me to see things from his perspective and him to see things from my perspective. And honestly, I mean, I think I've probably grown more working with him than he probably has working with me, because I've just been engulfed in all these things that go on, right? Like look, if you're a white person and you only are around white people and you don't have any interactions with any other, like, groups, you can't expect to understand what's really happening, because it's just impossible for you. You can't empathize with anybody else, like you just don't. It's very difficult, I think, and I think for me, being able to have the experiences that I've had with Buddha, dealing with just jobs, people coming in the shop, seeing people's faces. If we say he's the business owner, it's just, you just start to see like the gears turning in people's heads, and you're just like, wow, that really is something. That person really is thinking about this, and like, they're like blown away or something, and you see that the world really isn't what people would think it is, right? Everybody, I think today is like, oh, it's 2025. Everything is normal. Everybody gets along. There is no racism. I don't see no racism, Listen, I would say that probably 75 to 80% of people are probably still racist. And you wouldn't think it. They don't talk it. They don't walk around saying the N-word. They don't do that stuff, right? But there's a part.
You're saying there's something that's baked.
There's a part of them. Yes,
I think it's more of a separation. 75%, and I hope it's.
I love that you're just like, here's the percentages, guys.
I hope it's no. What I will add, though, I think also because we are in this small city, it's a little different. You go to a bigger city, the racism isn't, I guess, as blatant as it is now.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I mean, I walk around. I don't walk around here thinking about, everybody here is racist, because I have a multicultural family, so I don't walk around thinking like that. But I can see it in people's attitudes and their body language. I'm a real kind of I'm not gonna say antisocial person, but I don't socialize a lot, and maybe that's the reason why I pick and choose my conversations. But I think, with our partnership and relationship, I don't see why people feel the way they feel, right? Or think you should not have a relationship with any other race. But hopefully, by presenting our relationship to whoever is interested in watching this, we could change them a little bit,
to try to inspire people to be a little bit better than what they are. Because
so with all that data, though, like, how do you So how does that affect how you guys have to operate?
Well,
I'm not trying to bring everything back to business, but it's real, right?
I'm going to be completely honest, right? It's definitely easier for a customer to deal with Ride than to deal with me, because they're more comfortable, and and honestly, I did say a small city is more easier to pick out racist people, but even in the bigger cities, I traveled. It's still I see it there too, right? And that's what we want to break. I want to, feel comfortable wherever I go, right? I want to feel that if he says I'm the business owner, right? The customer is like, hey, great, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. It doesn't
have say goodbye when they leave.
It doesn't have to be another black person to be like, all right, and feel comfortable. It should be anybody, right? Anybody. Because that's my personality, right? I think I can get along with everybody, but it's. Sometimes it's difficult and it is and disappointing
when you do it right. I really feel that if people just were a little bit more open-minded, whether it be to a transgender person or a black person or a Mexican somebody, right? It's like everybody's so quick to judge people, but
let's see how much hate mail I get for this episode.
We're sorry. We're sorry about that.
But see how sad that is, right? I know, that's right? sad.
But, think
people would think that way, but it's like, look, I mean, not to get way off track, but like you could ask majority of people about people coming into the country and migrating here and everything, and who's got fentanyl, who's doing all these things, carrying drugs through the jungle to get here to freedom, and people are just trying to survive, right? And so no matter what those people were doing, like they wake up every morning with the same thing, thinking the same way you do. I gotta survive today. Take care of my family. And some people, when crimes happen, those people are just at the any means necessary stage of their life, and sometimes bad things happen. No. That's right, yeah. But you could take that same person, in my opinion, and put them in a whole nother loving, caring life. That person would probably be the greatest person on earth, And I think that people are just a product of their environment and what they're going through. And if you would just people would try to just understand and see that stuff, I think it would just help them so much more in their life to be a little bit less hateful. And
do you think that affects you guys not as business owners, but in the way that you kind of go through the world? I mean, does that affect, are you carrying those ideas with you, or how do you carry those ideas with you?
So it's that old saying about the turtle wins the race and all that. Yeah, I mean that is facts.
Yeah.
And I think that if anything, maybe the podcast and the conversations that we're having, can help some other people that are going into business or already in business to learn from some of the stuff that we went through, some of the mistakes we made or the situations that we found.
Well, that's what I think. I mean, this is kind of the impetus of us sitting down for something longer today, because like I thoroughly enjoy all the conversations we get to have, and I'm like, why is nobody hearing this? Why is nobody hearing this? And I think you guys have a great story to tell. You make a great product, and it's time to try to let people know.
I think so.
It's March now when we're recording this. This is the time to get in the food truck business, right?
Yeah.
So
it's getting late.
It's getting late. Yeah. So if anyone wants to get into the food truck business, how do they contact you? You're talking like 6-8 weeks from start to finish.
Yeah, more like 8-10 weeks.
8-10 weeks to get a food truck, like start to finish. All right.
MVWtrailers.com. You can fill out a request for a quote form. You can call us 315-542-7669, and it's definitely the time to do it. I think if anybody was to get involved at this point, you're probably like a Memorial Day type of.
It's just the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Perfect time.
Yep.
As long as everything goes good.
Oh, come on! Stop selling stop selling yourself short. You're like, I don't know. You might be okay. If you get in now, you might do okay. Come on.
This is prime time.
Yeah, it's busy time, busy season. Yeah. And a lot of things flood in. So, it's definitely, look, anybody that's going into the food truck business that lives in the Northeast, you want to start that process in like January. Yeah. If you're like right after the new year or something, I think that's always for whatever, even if it's next year or the year after. Anytime January or before, because by the time you get the trailer, it's going to take you 10 weeks pretty much to get the trailer, and then you got to get your inspections,
get your
do a couple test runs, make sure that everything's running good, and cook, just get out there and do some cooking for some family or some little private parties, make sure you got it all figured out before you like go to an event. But it's funny because like people will come here. We've sold trailers to people, and they've had the trailer for 5 months or something, had it in their possession, right? And then will call us the day before or the day that they're going to an event. Yeah. Like, hey, I just just fired the trailer up, and how do I do this? How do I do that? How does this work? How do you turn on the fryers? And it's like, you had this trailer for 4 months?
Or they book events before they even get the trailer, which is a big
book a ton of stuff.
So that,
funny. It's all about thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the time, and you can hit you guys up on the web. You're on the follow you on social media.
Follow us on social. We're gonna really start putting out some content. That's the plan. That's actually the the goal
of why we're doing this.
Having Mr. Miller here interviewing us.
See how it goes. It's going to be successful. I want to thank Ryan and Buddha for spending time with me, letting me bring the cameras into the shop, and just having, the kinds of conversations that we have when the cameras are not rolling, having it when they are rolling in the shop. So really grateful to both of them for sharing their story. If you want to know more about them, again, check out their website, mvwtrailers.com. Subscribe to their YouTube channel. Give them a shout. Let them know that you heard their story here on the pod. And thanks a lot for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter. And I don't know. We'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.